If you've never been to mainland China, this might surprise you. Security checks are everywhere. And I don't mean airports. I mean your daily commute. Every morning, before I even get on the subway, I have to stop, take off my bag, put it through an X-ray machine, wait, pick it up, and then finally walk in. Now imagine doing that during rush hour. Thousands of people, all tired, all in a hurry, all forced to slow down. And that adds about 10 minutes to my commute. Every single day. That's not once in a while. That's your life. And here's the thing that shocks most foreigners. This is not just in one city. This is not temporary. This is normal. In China today, security checks have expanded far beyond what most countries would consider necessary. Subways? Checked. Buses? Sometimes have security staff. Public squares? Fences. Parks? ID or reservations. Universities? Controlled entry. It's like the logic is simple. If something might be risky, let's add security. And then nobody ever removes it. Now compare that to cities like New York, London, or Tokyo. You walk straight into the subway. No bag scan. No waiting. No checkpoint. Even in places with real security concerns, most countries choose speed and trust over constant screening. There's an interesting comparison people often bring up. Even in cities like New Delhi, where public safety challenges are more serious, subway security exists, but it's not necessarily what makes the system work. Which raises a very uncomfortable question. If a society is already becoming safer, why are the security measures becoming stricter? That's where things get complicated. Because this isn't just about safety. It's about psychology. On paper, China is actually much safer today than it was 10 or 20 years ago. Violent crime is relatively low. Daily life is stable. And yet, the visible level of defense keeps increasing. More machines, more guards, more barriers. So what's going on? A lot of people inside China point to one core reason: fear of responsibility. If you're a local official, your biggest risk is not doing too much. It's not doing enough, and something happens. Because if anything goes wrong, you are the one held accountable. So what do? You add more security. Even if it doesn't really help. Even if it slows everything down. Even if it wastes money. Because politically, it's safer to overreact than to take a calculated risk. And this creates a chain reaction. One city adds more checks. Another city copies it. Then another one adds even more. Not because it's effective, but because nobody wants to be the least strict. And over time, this becomes something deeper. A kind of institutional habit. Or even a ritual. There's a term often used in China to describe this. Formalism. It means doing something not because it works, but because it looks like you're doing something. And security checks are a perfect example. Because let's be honest, sometimes the checks are not even strict. People walk through, bags barely scanned, rules inconsistently applied. It becomes a performance. There was a survey with over 300,000 participants. About 48% of people said security checks are excessive, a waste of time and resources, but around 31% supported them. Why? Because they feel safer. And that's the key word, feel. Not necessarily are safer. So now you have a strange situation. A system that costs a lot of money, slows down millions of people, and may not significantly improve safety, but still continues to expand. Let's talk about cost. Because this part is rarely discussed. Think about the scale. Every subway station, every machine, every security worker. That's an enormous amount of manpower and money. Some cities already struggle to make their subway systems profitable. And yet, they're adding layers of cost every year. There's also a popular argument. Well, at least it creates jobs. But critics inside China have a very blunt response to that. If you need fake security work to create jobs, that's not real economic growth. Now let me tell you something personal. I'm just a normal office worker. I already wake up early. I already squeeze into a packed subway. I already spend hours commuting. And on top of that, I have to stand in line just to get inside the station. Every day, rain or shine. And yes, rain actually makes it worse. Because in many Chinese airports, you're required to take out things like umbrellas and power banks, individually checked. Even when flying domestically, here's the part that really makes people pause. If you go to Hong Kong, which is literally part of China, the subway? No security checks. The airport? Much more streamlined. Same culture, same people, completely different experience. So now the question becomes unavoidable. Is this really about safety? Or is it about something else? Some critics argue that over-securitization actually has the opposite effect. Instead of making people feel safe, it constantly reminds them that something could go wrong. It creates a subtle, permanent tension. And even more importantly, it may weaken what some call social resilience. Because a healthy society is not one that eliminates all risk. That's impossible. A healthy society is one that knows how to handle risk. If you try to control everything, prevent everything, filter everything, you don't create strength. You create fragility. So what's the solution? Some suggest a very simple idea. Stop expanding. Start removing. Remove unnecessary checks. Reduce redundant procedures. Focus on real risks instead of theoretical ones. And maybe more importantly, shift resources upstream. Instead of spending billions on scanning bags, invest in reducing the root causes of conflict and instability. Because long-term safety doesn't come from machines. It comes from people. But that kind of change is hard. Because it requires something rare. The courage to do less. And in a system where everyone is afraid of being blamed, doing less can feel more dangerous than doing too much. In a socialist state with a massive economy, it is incredibly difficult to get the government to slow down, especially when it comes to controlling the populace. So for now, the machines stay, the lines stay, the extra 10 minutes of your life stay. And if you ever visit mainland China, and you find yourself standing in a long line, just to enter a subway station, now you know, it's not just security, it's a system. And once a system like that is in place, it's very hard to turn it off. If you've experienced something similar in your country, or if you think this is justified, I'd really like to hear your thoughts, because this is one of those topics where people strongly disagree. And honestly, that disagreement might be the most important part of the conversation. I am Lino. This channel explores the reality of China beyond the headlines. See you in the next video.